Today is Thursday, September 1st, 2022. I'm looking at the time on the hand controllers down here, 8:52:22, and I've already determined that somehow this clock has gained 2 minutes since I last reset it, which may be one of the factors that is causing it to misalign initially and indicate such a big error in terms of the azimuth. So there may be a setting. Normally the G11 mount would synchronize with a geosat, but it hasn't detected any here. So I suspect the internal oscillator that counts seconds is slightly off, and I'm starting to think that there might be a parameter that I can adjust. However, that isn't really the important thing right now. The important thing right now is the temperature dropped from about 100 degrees today, and it's about 65. And although you can't see it, I'm seeing the presence of a good deal of water vapor in the atmosphere, which is going to complicate my plan. And that water vapor situation is to some degree being exacerbated by the fact that the moon is now waxing, and I believe it's in probably day 4. Let's go have a look at it over here. Yeah, you can see it heading towards the hills. It'll soon be out of the picture, and it isn't an issue right now anyway because it's not anywhere near the line of sight of the observatory. But it will continue to illuminate that water vapor, which is going to really challenge tonight's viewing, because tonight I want to go and see if I can capture something of the Veil Nebula in Cygnus. So that's the challenge that is before the Skywatcher and the Rev 2. And that's what I'm going to move on to next. I'm going to start by characterizing the Crescent Nebula, maybe the Crescent Nebula in Cygnus, which is also overhead, because the Veil is in the eastern part of Cygnus. So let's see what we can come up with. Of course, that light's going to be turned off. My first step in the evening's quest, and no, that's actually Alberio, is to synchronize the Mount. I had done it about 20 minutes ago, and I had to do some tapping to get it back into the center of the field of view. What's important is that I have an initially good set of alignments with coordinates. First thing we're going to do, we just lost the little mask. How about that? So apparently the sensitivity of the CMOS detector got to the point where it could handle the bright light with the filter. I am using a Lumicon deep sky filter, and ever since I installed it in the focal train, I've been seeing the shadow. I've been getting the effect of the donut effect. You're not seeing a donut here because Alberio is a double star. I believe the magnitudes are 2 and 6, separated by about 45 arc seconds. But that's just from memory. What we're going to do now is we're going to go and have a look at NGC 688, because that'll give me a good idea about conditions and whether or not we have a shot at seeing the 3 parts of the veil that I'm going to track down this evening. So let's go to 6888. Okay, NGC 6888 is one of my favorite studies. It's right on the border of a 6-inch at low magnification with a dark sky filter, being able to see the brightest components of the nebulosity. It's got a spireless shape. There are 5 easily recognizable stars that it's associated with. The nebula is in Cygnus. It's 20 by 10 arc minutes in size, 4,800 light years distance, of magnitude 10. You spread out that much light over that size, even though it is a crescent, you're going to mostly have nebulosity in the 13th to 14th magnitude range. As I said, it's in Cygnus. It's well above the celestial equator. The scope, fortunately, did not have to do any kind of flip. We're now viewing it in color. I can see it quite clearly from this vantage point, which is why I'm going to have you look at it here first, and then shift the camera around. We're operating at 128 flood with 48 auto gain control. And if you're looking at it, you can see the sweep or the smile of the crescent all the way from here to there. And that is actually a very pretty view of the crescent. Now, I can't really see it in the handheld camera, but if the view is this good from the side, I am very impressed with it. Another nice baseline would be to look at the Dumbbell Nebula in Vulpecula, and we'll have a look at that too. But I am quite impressed with the view I'm getting right now. Once again, we're at 128 flood, 40 auto gain control, but I've also boosted the contrast and the brightness of the screen up quite a ways. So I think all of these are factors in terms of giving this really excellent view of the Crescent Nebula. And hopefully it'll look as nice on the camera tomorrow when I review this video as it does right. Oh, what did we just get? Watch how long that train dissipates. It's taking a little bit of time. Right now we should basically be, since we're at 128 flood, that's 3 times 0.67 at 64, 1.5 times 6, about 9 seconds of image capture for the CCD imager, 6 stacks of about a second and a half. I'm really liking that view, and I love the color in it, the reddish colors. Very, very sweet. On to another nice baseline study, Messier 27, the Dumbbell in Vulpecula. Magnitude 7.3, so it has, and smaller than the Crescent, 8 by 5.6 arc minutes, 1,300 light years distant, a little more towards the celestial equator. But once again, we're operating at 128 flood with 40 auto gain control, reasonably high contrast, and screen brightness, which, from my point of view, right where I'm sitting, is revealing everything that I expect to see in the Dumbbell Nebula. We're seeing the frontiers to the 2 and 6 or 7 o'clock positions, seeing nice purple, blue, and white. I'm also seeing the bulbous extensions to the 4 and 10 o'clock positions from my eyepiece position. The stars are not elongate, so with the telescope's fairly stable, we're seeing the central star. This is a magnificent image. If we were actually looking through an eyepiece, that dumbbell shape would be all we'd see. It'd be quite faint, although it'd be quite present as well. This is quite magnificent that I'm able to actually take the 6-inch refractor out and see deep sky studies like this with so much beauty and detail. A little bit of pixelation due to the high contrast and brightness of the screen. But other than that, this looks really, really good. I'm very, very pleased with it. I'd like to upgrade the screen at some point, get a Bluetooth to project the data into the screen or a laptop, and then be able to capture images without a handheld camera. But the beauty of the handheld is I get to extol the wonders and beauties of these night skies. We are now about to look at I believe it's the easternmost component of the Veil Nebula, which is a supernova remnant in Cygnus. It's associated with a very bright star. It'd be nice if I could remember the name of it. The supernova remnant is basically an expanding field of gas, and that was mostly gas but not dust, that was thrown off by a supernova that happened about, I think it was a star that, very massive star that exploded. I believe it was like 2,500 years ago. No, it's got to be longer than that because this is a very, very large expansionary disk in 3 major parts. So I'll have to do a little research on this. But this one component is 210 by 160 arc minutes, 1,500 light years away, well above the celestial equator. 6960, and what we want to do here is I want to point out right away that it's embroiled with a bright star, but from my angle I can see the sweep of the nebulosity going up like this. Now keep in mind that this will continue to sweep extensively well into this region here. This is only like a 15 arc minute region, the lowest power I can possibly get through the imager. And it's going to sweep up and up. But at least we're seeing some 15 arc minutes of the expanding cloud of ionized particles as it races through space some 1,700 light years away. So there is 6960. As I said, I have to picture where it is. I believe it's the easternmost, or the westernmost, sorry, remnant of the Veil Nebula. As I was stepping through on the hand controller to get to 6979, which I believe would have been, I'll have to give it some thought, which is, I believe, the northern component of the veil, I realized possibly that those dimensions that were given out for the supernova remnant in Cygnus was actually the entirety of the veil. So 200, I believe it was 210 arc minutes. Basically, that's 3 degrees. So yeah, I think they were given the dimensions of the entire supernova remnant. Now, I discovered as I stepped forward from 6960, I was going to 6979, that another component of the remnant exists at these locations. It's also 1,500 light years away, so it's part of the same thing. Let's have a look, because I am seeing some faint nebulosity on the screen, especially right there, plus this purplishness on it as well. But you can see that there are various brightish components or parts of the veil that are expanding outward at a pretty good speed, are being illuminated by neighboring stars, and that's what we're seeing here. Of course, the stars have tails, which means I must be shifting the mount around a little bit. 9-second exposure time. But I am definitely, from my vantage, seeing a continuation of the Veil Nebula. Now, I have to say, the best way to see the veil is at about 30x on a scope, and to do 30x and be able to actually get all the image into your eye would require like a 4-inch scope. 100, yeah. So that would be about 3 or 4 millimeters. You probably get it down to about 20x, but the background sky gets too bright to see the nebula, even with a filter. But a 30x view through a telescope under good dark conditions should give you an entire view, especially with a good nebula filter, of the veil in its entirety. Of course, we can't see that here. We only got a 20 by 15 arc minute field to look through. We progress to 6979, we see the remnant again. Aha! But they're stating the actual size of this portion of the remnant is 3 by 2 arc minutes, a little larger than the Ring Nebula, also 1,500 light years distant, and well to the north. I'm going to go there now. Shouldn't be much of a trip. See, the image is trying to image it. integrate itself after the last image. And there are hints now that the stars are actually becoming more pointillistic, although I'm seeing some tails there. There's clearly nebulosity all over. It's kind of a purplish color all over this screen. Now for J.L.E. Dreyer, when he put together the catalog and gave it this number, he would have only seen little patches of it. He had like I think it was a 10-inch refractor. It was not an it was an achromat, so it wasn't particularly color accurate. But a 10-inch, he should have been able to see stars down to about magnitude 15, 14 and a half to 15. And he should have been able to see patches of nebulosity, so he gave it all separate names. So rather than sweeping anymore, I'm going to settle on this view right here, and we'll go on to the next part of the veil that is in this catalog of NGCs that Dreyer came up with. The next portion of the veil, or remnant of the supernova, is NGC 6992. And I went stepping through. Many of them were, the NGCs were galaxies, which are probably 90% of the catalog is that. So this one here is magnitude 7, 60 arc minutes by 8. So that means it's going to be nice and thin. It's very, actually quite crescent-like, but larger. 1,500 light years distant. And let's have a look. You heard the adjustment. Now you can watch the screen assemble itself. This is probably the brightest portion of the veil. You can see it forming itself on the screen. That persistent purplish color. There are dark regions in it, so it's streaming, and there probably are some cold, dark nebulosity, Barnard type nebulosity, that are blocking some of the view, but it may intrinsically just be the texture of the gases. Remember, these have expanded out 1,500 light years away, and it's almost 3 degrees across, which tells you there's been a tremendous amount of expansion over time after this nova blew up. Oh, this is really becoming present. Wow. Clearly the brightest part of the veil. Just wonderful. I'll set it right there for a second. Once again, this is a nebula filter. 128 flood, 40 auto gain control, pushing the color, high contrast, high bright screen brightness. Wow. That just seems to get brighter and brighter all the time. Now it would be really nice if I could trace it out a little bit. I'll try to do that because we can see it going to the upper left-hand corner. So I'll try to move the mount in that direction while keeping this particular star somewhere on the screen as a reference point. Let's see how much of the extension we can pick up a little. What I've done now is shifted NGC 6992, the veil, further to the lower right. You can see that bright star that's embroiled with nebulosity right about there. So we've effectively added this much more of the veil to it. Once again, remembering NGC 6888, the Crescent Nebula, this portion of the veil, which I believe is the eastern veil, part of the supernova remnant, is crescent shaped, but significantly larger than the Crescent Nebula and further up on the spine of Cygnus. I do believe we can continue to push this out. So the next thing I'm going to want to do is bring this so we can catch this continuation here. So I'll shift the image down. Maybe we can keep track of this star right there as our reference, which is embroiled with nebulosity near the upper part of the screen. As you recall, I believe this is our reference star. We moved it basically from up there to down here. You can see these little wispy trains going off to the upper left-hand part of the screen. Lots of texture and variation and brightness. You can see there's going to be a continuation of this nebulosity up and to the left. So what we'll do next is we'll try to get this part of the nebula further down. We're going to lose this nice gull wing at some point though. See that? Very sweet. I'm now beginning to believe that with persistence, we might be able to completely circumnavigate the Veil Nebula as a ring. I'll continue to push it a little bit because the nebulosity just seems to go on and on and on, and at some point, if I continue to drop it to the bottom and navigate towards the upper left-hand corner of the screen, just maybe we'll end up where we started. Well, I continue just to push it down. Here's our little gull wing down in this area here. Here's a nice striate. There's some more expansive nebulosity there. But what impresses me is this big globular area up there, big glob, just now beginning to become apparent on the screen. And all I've been doing is pushing it down. Now I have to watch the scope, but I'll try to report on which direction the scope is when I press the down button, because you can never know with a hand controller based on the orientation of the scope at the time. But we're just seeing more and more texture in this nebulation. It is just astonishing. And if the handheld camera is seeing anything that's similar to what I'm seeing, even though I'm at an extreme angle, boy, it's very impressive. Let's continue. Okay, I'm not being definitive about this, but I think the scope is tilting further and further east as I tap the down button on the hand controller. Look at this up here. It's actually getting luminous. Almost looks like a pregnant woman's figure with her belly right in here. And it's getting so dense with luminosity. Can you imagine what it would be like to just have a scope that you could program so it would just circulate around the veil and capture, a couple frames here and there and end up with a beautiful movie of it? Afraid I can't do that, but I am looking forward to seeing what happens with this luminous region up here as we continue to tap east. I've pushed that figure. Oh, we just caught something streaming through. Probably a satellite. I pushed that figure from about there down for about, I would say it's probably about 7 or 8 arc minutes. And now we're beginning to see a sweep of luminosity, which is probably going to end up in that direction there. I notice when I tap the down button, occasionally I'm also activating a button that's set to the left, but I don't know if that's actually shifting the image to the left or to the right. occasionally my finger seems to be making contact. Wow, look at this brilliant little trifid-like region right there. And this ray and curvation going up to the top. Probably got to start shifting the image up and to the left this way, opposite of where my finger is pointing, the other direction, because I'm using my left hand. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to start shifting up in that direction as well as tapping the down button. See if we can circulate some more. All right, continue my shift down and to the left. Here's all that brightish luminosity up here. I sure wish the camera would show well. Maybe that's a little better job of positioning the handheld. There's also some whitish luminosity up here. You can see some purplish striate right there. Stars are looking pretty good. The densest part of the white luminosity is in this region here, which is very intriguing. Maybe, that supernova when it went off actually started activating some star formation. It's only conjecture. But there is definitely a gradient of luminosity across the screen and differing colors. I'll keep doing my shift. See, until we run out of either battery or nebulosity. On the go, on the fly. Well, I may end up putting a wrap to this. I'm no longer clearly being able to tell supernova remnant over just some brightish nebulosity, either due to faint stars or a different kind of star formation region. You can see some of this whitish nebulosity right in this region here, but I'm at a loss now to tell exactly what's left of the veil. There are hints of it down in this lower left-hand corner down here. I doubt we've circumnavigated it, but it certainly has been fun trying to do so. I'll tap with it a little bit more and see if I can't find another region. Maybe I'll go back to 6960, which was the original starting point, and then take one more look at that as the sky gets darker, and maybe the other NGC portion of it that that's on my charts. We'll take one final look at those, and then it's going to be Carpe Noctem. Well, once again, we're right back where we started, 6960. We don't seem to have lost too much in the way of tracking. The scope definitely shifted west from that other location. And I am noticing here now more of that white nebulosity up here with the actual remnant down below like this. What I'm going to try to do is drop this star down to the bottom and repeat sort of what we've been doing already and see if there's any extensions of the veil up in this direction here. For future reference, I noticed it took about 9 taps to shift the star from the center of the screen down. It's a good number, 9. We're seeing an extension of the purplish nebulosity going off in this direction here. Now what I'm going to do is shift the star back up to near the top of the screen, which would be 18 taps on the opposite button on the hand controller, and we'll get an idea what's down below it too. And that will be Carpe Noctem on the veil. And for the rest of the evening. Although I might get the bino viewer out and have a look at Jupiter and Saturn before I turn in. Just for the record, that was 25 taps to get the bright star up towards the top of the screen. So I would assume it's at least 40 taps, discrete, quick taps to get something migrated completely in a vertical direction on the screen at this lowest magnification. All right, what are we seeing here? Well, I am seeing, I believe this is called the Witch's Broom section of the Veil Nebula. The Witch's Broom. Swings right through there. Now there's a part of it that broadens out, which is the actual threads, or the actual straw of the broom. And it's probably up and to the north up here of the bright star. Hopefully I've captured that as part of the previous imaging. There we go. Here's my view over here to see if there's any real difference. Yeah, comes out pretty bright. I'm sure hoping I get something similar to that when I actually review the imaging tomorrow. Well, carpe noctem.